Hello and welcome to your Study Abroad Pre-Departure Orientation session. During this session, we will go over a variety of topics, including academics and records, logistics, health and safety, risk management, culture, technology, and social media. After completing this orientation session, you are responsible for completing your pre-departure orientation review quiz. This can be found on your application portal. If you have any questions regarding your quiz or this session, please contact your study abroad advisor.
Academics and records. Study abroad. Now this shouldn't need any explanation. However, as many students in the past have proved, this is a very important distinction we need to make. Study abroad is an extension of your academic career. It is called study abroad for a reason. You're going on this academic experience to receive course credit towards your degree. So, just like when you take a course here at UNG, your participation, your attendance, your grades, all of it has an impact and is important. Grades transfer. Pay very close attention to your syllabus and your attendance expectations. Several students in the past have failed due to poor attendance. Please keep in mind, academic rigor varies from country to country.
Academics. For all faculty-led program students, please disregard this slide. Everyone else, so students who are going on exchange, direct enroll, or third-party programs like CIE or ISA, please pay attention. Your study abroad advisor will register or has registered you for your courses and will make any changes necessary while you are abroad. This is why the course equivalency form was such a crucial part of your application process. However, we understand that sometimes students arrive and need to make changes to their courses, either because a course wasn't available or they'd like to change. This brings us to the enrollment verification form and process. As you can see on your screen, this form is available for you to confirm your course enrollment while abroad. This form will be available on your application portal after you arrive in country and will need to be completed and uploaded back to your portal within 2 weeks of the start of your program. Notice the 2 arrows highlighting 2 signature locations. Make sure that you, the student, have signed this form as well as have received the signature from your host or local coordinator of your program before submitting it back to your study abroad advisor. Please remember that any changes to enrollment may have an effect on your financial aid, so it is necessary to work with your academic advisor and your study abroad advisor to ensure that any changes you make do not have a negative impact. If it happens that you change one of your courses to a course that has not been approved on your course equivalency form, you must seek new equivalencies. The study abroad advisor may guide you to communicate with the appropriate department head, but will not do the work for you.
Grades. The structure of your program will determine how the grade process will work. No matter what, CGE will or has registered you for your UNG courses in Banner and will make any changes if necessary while you're abroad. Incompletes. Depending on your program, it is quite possible, even probable, that your study abroad advisor will request incompletes for your study abroad courses. This does not have a negative impact on your GPA. Let me repeat, this does not have a negative impact on your GPA. This is simply used as a placeholder while we wait for your transcripts. More often than not, foreign institutions take a significant amount of time to deliver transcripts, which cause a significant delay in CGE's ability to evaluate them and assign grades to your Banner account. Please be patient during this process. We can assure you that we're not deliberately holding out on assigning your grades, just simply waiting for them to arrive. If you're studying abroad during the end of your junior year or senior year and are intending to apply for graduate school, then please keep in mind that this process does take a while and might affect when your transcripts will show your study abroad credit. Students planning on transferring should check with their new institution whether the delay of grades will affect their transfer and plan accordingly. Additionally, if you're studying abroad with a third-party provider, particularly ISEP, it may be your responsibility to request your foreign transcript. Please ensure with your host coordinator whether or not your transcripts are automatically sent to UNG or whether or not you need to personally request them. Never assume anything. Additionally, transcripts must be sent to the CGE office, not the registrar, not your home, not your academic advisor, or anyone else. If you're personally responsible for obtaining your transcripts, remember that we cannot accept opened, tampered transcripts. They must be official, sealed transcripts for us to be able to evaluate them.
Financial aid. If you have any questions regarding how much financial aid you will receive, how much of your tuition will be paid by financial aid, or whether or not you will be receiving a refund, please refer back to the financial aid section of your course equivalency form on your application portal. If you feel that this information is inaccurate or needs updated, then please make an appointment with your financial aid advisor before departing campus. Financial aid will not be distributed until at minimum 10 days before your program start date. Make sure that if you need funds before this date, you make other plans, as payment for your program is non-negotiable and the financial aid office cannot make exceptions to their 10-day rule. If you are set to receive a refund, make sure that your refund preferences have been set up via the business office. Please notice that we have check and Nighthawk card crossed out in the slide. We have had more than one student in the past have their refund settings set to receive a check. However, either they didn't update their home address on their Banner account and the check went to a location they no longer lived at, or it went home to mom and dad who just left it aside not realizing what it was. These scenarios combined with the fact that a paper check can cause a significant delay in a student getting access to their money, even if it's sent to the correct address, is why we do not recommend receiving your refund in the form of a check. Nighthawk cards. Typically, students have their refund set to their Nighthawk card, but for study abroad purposes, it's preferable to use your personal debit card instead, as the Nighthawk card may not be accepted in every country.
FERPA. FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act and is a federal law that was enacted in 1974. FERPA protects the privacy of student education records. While abroad, study abroad advisors cannot share any information about you as students, the program you're on, or any academic information connected with your study abroad program without the student waiving FERPA rights. In order to waive FERPA rights, you must log into your Banner account and grant authorization to your preferred individual. You will assign a code word to your preferred individual, and they will be responsible for repeating it back to us upon request before we may speak with them about any FERPA-protected topics. FERPA-protected topics may include personal information, program details, itinerary, etc. In case of real emergency, we may need to contact someone on your behalf. We will contact whomever is listed in your application under emergency contacts. Make sure you're comfortable and confident with whomever you list as your emergency contact and that all of their contact information is correct.
In case you aren't sure how to waive FERPA rights or assign a FERPA allowed contact in your banner account, please follow the next few slides' directions. Once you log into your banner account, you will need to find the tab Student Records. Click on this. From there, you will want to select Authorization to Release or Discuss Education Records. Notice on this screenshot it says Update Authorization. That is because this student has already assigned a FERPA waived individual. But if you have not, it will just say Authorization to Release. After that, this screen will pull up and explains what FERPA is again, so you understand what you are waiving to this individual. You will then indicate whom you are authorizing to discuss your records with and assign a passcode or password. Please ensure that the assigned individual knows their passcode, because just because their name is listed, if they don't have the correct password, we will still not be able to communicate with them.
Logistics. Documents. For passports, all students are required to have uploaded a clear, color copy of both their photo and signature pages of their passport to their application portal. If you have not already completed this, then please do so immediately. If you have already uploaded your passport scan to your portal, have you made sure that it is valid through your entire program and then 6 months after you return? You might think that this is a crazy question, but most countries will not allow you to pass through their borders if your passport isn't valid for 6 whole months after your return date. Yes, some countries allow only 3 months or less, but 6 months is the safest rule. Let's play true or false. True or false? You should always keep your passport on your person the entire time you're abroad. The answer is false. You should not do so. True or false? You should keep your passport in your carry-on while flying. The answer is true. You will need access to your passport at border control. You should leave your passport laying out in your room. True or false? The answer is false. True or false? When not traveling, aka flying, crossing borders, etc., you should keep your passport locked up in a secure place. The answer is true. True or false? Your passport is not valid until it has been signed. The answer is true. Lastly, true or false? You should keep a color photocopy of your photo and signature pages on you at all times. The answer is true.
You might be wondering, what is an appropriate way to upload your passport to your application portal? First of all, a passport that has been taken by a cell phone camera that you are holding or has your finger showing in it or has background is not an appropriate passport upload. A black and white copy is also a not appropriate passport copy. You also must include the entire 2 halves of the page that show your photo, your information, your passport number, and your signature. This cannot be 2 separate uploads of each individual page. It cannot be half, it cannot be 3/4, it cannot be partial. It must be the entirety of these 2 pages together. Please notice on the slide 2 inaccurate versions of a passport upload from previous students. In the first top left-hand corner, you can see the student didn't upload it at all. This is not acceptable. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a student had taken a photo of their passport with their cell phone camera. You can see the finger shadowing in the top right-hand corner, and you can see that it's significantly cut off. Again, this is not an appropriate submission of your passport. Please go back and check your passport upload and make sure that your photo follows all of the requirements. If you still have not uploaded an approved copy of your passport to your application portal, please bring your passport to the Center for Global Engagement office during business hours so we can make a scan for you. On this next slide, you can see the correct way to upload a copy of your passport. Notice that Mrs. Obama has uploaded both pages in one PDF, that it is in color, and that all the information is legible and nothing is cut off. Please make sure that your passport submission looks similar to Mrs. Obama's.
Getting to the airport. All faculty-led programs will be departing out of Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. It is the responsibility of the student to get themselves to the airport, checked in, and arrive to the assigned gate for the group flight. Depending on the program director may be waiting before security to meet students or waiting at the gate for students. It is the responsibility of the student to communicate with their program director to confirm where they will be located. For those of you who are attending a direct enroll or an exchange program, you're responsible for all travel logistics for your program. Typically, host institutions provide airport pickup services. Ensure that you have communicated with your host institution or program about what is expected of you in terms of arrival destination, date, and time. An important item to keep in mind: please arrive 3 to 4 hours prior to departure time. Atlanta and many other major airports are known to have long security lines, and take into account the potential additional time it may take to catch the tram to get you to your terminal gate. It's always best to overestimate rather than underestimate your time.
Reading your flight itinerary. Time zones. This may seem like common sense to some, but it may also surprise others. But when you fly through time zones, which can confuse travelers when it comes to their arrival time. So when reading your itinerary, it's important that not only do you pay attention to the time listed for departure, but it also to the arrival time, but dates as well. For example, if you're flying from Atlanta to Sydney, then you will skip a full day and then arrive the next day. But when flying back to Atlanta, you repeat the same day twice. It's also helpful to think about time zones and how the jet lag will affect your sleep schedule when flying. Maybe it's best to sleep as much of the flight as possible, or maybe only the first half. There's lots to consider here. Transfers and gate changes. If your itinerary includes a transfer, layover, gate change, etc., then you must plan ahead for those aspects. Do your research. Which airport do you have a layover in? Will you have to switch terminals? Does this mean that you need to take a tram or a bus or an alternative method? Or will you be expected to travel through border security? Will that cause a delay that you'll need to plan for? Maybe you'll want to look up a terminal map for the airport to visualize where you'll need to go. Also, how will you know which gate to go to when you get there? Many people assume, since they booked their flight through a particular airline, that all of their flights along the way will be coded with that same airline. But, most likely, the coding will change depending on which airline is running that particular flight. So you'll need to read your itinerary carefully to know exactly which flight on the display board is yours. Manage your booking. Do you know how to make adjustments to your booking? This could include seat change preference, requesting a particular meal type, such as gluten-free, dairy-free, halal, etc., or making an accommodation request. Each airline's webpage is set up differently, and the language used may vary slightly, but typically it's located under a tab called Manage My Booking, or something similar. When you find that link on the airline's webpage, you'll be prompted to input your reservation code and your last name, sometimes even your flight departure date. This will then take you to all your booking information and allow you to make requests or changes. Please note that some changes may cost extra money. Students who are on group flights with faculty-led programs will not be allowed to make any changes themselves. If you have a booking request, Please communicate with your study abroad advisor so that they may be able to work directly with the airline on your behalf.
Navigating the airport. Regulations. Make sure you know what is acceptable and isn't acceptable to travel with. Triple check with your airline and the TSA on what items cannot be brought onto a flight or through security. Security. When preparing your carry-on bag, always remember the 3-ounce liquid rule. Any form of liquid, which includes gels, creams, and aerosol sprays, cannot be larger than 3.4 ounces and must fit into a quart-sized Ziploc bag. When flying internationally, you are expected to present your passport with your boarding pass at security. It is best practice to keep your passport in a safe and secure, yet easy to reach place while traveling. Also, don't forget your socks. Although many airports have varying security protocols, it's always best to expect to have to take your shoes off while passing through security. Gates. Always arrive at your gate at minimum 30 to 45 minutes before the set departure time on your ticket. Typically, most tickets will indicate what time boarding starts. Try to be there 5 to 10 minutes before the designated time. If you make it through security and have plenty of time to spare, it's always a best practice to find your assigned gate first and foremost. Once you're comfortable and confident with your gate location, then you may go get a snack or use the facilities. Border. Upon landing in a foreign country, all passengers must pass through border control. If you're making a connection, this process may include going through security again, so be prepared for this, especially if you're traveling with liquids or a water bottle. Another common variation with border control is whether or not you'll be required to fill out a declaration card or enter your information on a machine that takes your photo. Various airports use varying methods. Some even bypass both methods and simply have you wait in line for a border agent. The most important thing to keep in mind when communicating with a border agent is to stay calm and be polite. Simply hand your passport to the agent when it's your turn, never cross the line before you're instructed to do so, and answer any questions they may have simply and directly. Don't mumble, don't fidget, don't look down or away. Also, be prepared to be asked any questions regarding your purpose of travel, your return flight, proof of funds, and other questions. If you're asked your purpose of visit, always reply with short-term study abroad. Never use the word internship, as it may indicate payment, which would require a visa. Connections. If you're making a flight connection, remember to always have your full itinerary on hand and easily accessible. Your connecting flight may be with a different airline than your previous flight and/or may have multiple flight numbers. Always pre-plan and get comfortable with your travel itinerary. Know whether or not you will have to change terminals and how that is done at your connecting airport, i.e. tram, bus, etc. Don't be nervous. If you can't find your way or get confused, you can ask a flight attendant or airport employee. Usually there are screens available to direct you based on your flight information.
Money. Foreign currency. As different countries all around the world have their own currency, it's important that you have some local currency on hand when you travel. You can acquire foreign currency in a variety of ways. You may order and pick it up from a currency counter at the airport, from your local bank, or from an ATM upon arrival. But all of these options have their own pros and cons. Typically, when trading American dollars for foreign currency at the airport, you don't get the most accurate currency conversion rate and/or you're charged an excessive fee. For example, the flat fee at the Atlanta airport is over $9. However, it is one of the most convenient options. Our main recommendation if you would like to get your foreign currency at the airport is to pre-order it online to be picked up from the Atlanta airport. This way you lock in a rate rather than winging it on departure day and just getting whatever rate they offer. If you decide to pre-order your currency from your bank, then make sure to ask ahead of time whether or not there will be a fee associated with that exchange and how far in advance you'll need to make your order, especially currencies that aren't typically asked for. For example, a bank will most likely have euros on hand but might need more time to get Jordanian dinars. Larger chain banks, however, are more likely to have a foreign currency on hand. For those of you who are Wells Fargo bankers or have family and friends that are, there are several international branches that have every foreign currency on hand, and they don't charge an exchange fee for their customers. Talking to your bank. It is absolutely crucial that at least 1 week prior to going abroad, you notify your bank where you'll be going and how long you'll be gone. This is so that hopefully they don't freeze your accounts when they see a foreign transaction. This can be done in various ways depending on your bank, online, by calling, or even in person. But be warned, some banks still may freeze your account even if you notified them. So you must have a contingency plan set in place on how you will communicate with them from abroad if this does happen. This is also why it's important to exchange some cash prior to arrival, ATM fees, and foreign transaction fees. When notifying your bank that you will be abroad, don't forget to ask your bank what, if any, foreign transaction fees you will be charged for ATM use or card usage while abroad. You also should ask them if they have any foreign partners in your destination that will allow you to avoid fees. For example, Barclays and US Bank are partners, so US Bank customers can use their ATM cards at Barclays ATMs and not pay fees. If you're going to be charged a fee every time you use an ATM abroad to pull out cash, then we recommend that you are thoughtful about how much and how often you do take out cash, because you don't want to be pulling out too much cash at one time and be responsible for carrying that large sum of cash, but also you don't want to keep paying fees because you take out too little too often. A personal recommendation is maybe $200 a time, and because that's enough that you can split it in half and you're not carrying it all, but it's also enough to maybe make a fee worth it. Lots to think about, and only do what's comfortable for you. Checking rates. It is the CGE's recommendation that you download a currency conversion rate app like XE or Oanda, so that you may always be up to date with the most currency conversion rates. Budgeting. If you have any questions about how to budget for your program, check the Budget tab on your program webpage. Also, keep in mind that your study abroad advisor can assist you with this. Student money management is also a great resource.
Packing. Packing for study abroad can be the most stressful aspect of the experience for some students. Despite what you may think, depending on what you're packing, a 50-pound checked bag fills up easily. When packing for your study abroad, you must stay mindful of the difference between need and want. You probably want to bring 3 pairs of cute strappy sandals for your summer in Belize, but you probably actually need a pair of good trainers and some water shoes instead. Really do your research about what your itinerary entails, what the weather will be like in the location you're going, and most importantly, what is appropriate in your destination. For example, females headed to the Middle East will probably want to leave their tank tops and shorts behind and pack more conservative, loose clothing instead. Students doing research in the rainforest will want to pack sturdy shoes, thick socks, and perhaps a waterproof jacket. Make sure, if you're going on a faculty-led program, that you discuss with your faculty member if there's anything you'll be expected to pack.
Health and safety. The purchase of international health insurance is a requirement of all study abroad students by the Board of Regents. For students studying abroad with our third-party providers, CIEE, ISA, and ISEP, then you are provided alternative insurance with them rather than through us. For everyone else, included in your program cost is insurance with CISI for the duration of your program. And we assure that CISI is a high-quality insurance coverage. You should have all received an email with your CISI card and information. Please make sure that you have saved this information someplace safe that you will have access to while abroad. A couple of important items to note regarding your CISI insurance. First, all the information you need to make a claim is listed on that card, and you may make a claim in one of two ways, by email or by phone. Second, there are two categories of contact information for CISI. Is it a general inquiry or is it an emergency? They have an email and a phone number for either situation. However, if you email CISI, please make sure that you've CC'd your study abroad advisor and or program director in the email so that they may assist you in this process and be kept in the loop. We also recommend CCing the program director if you only email the study abroad advisor and vice versa. You are allowed and are recommended to reach out to CISI if you would like to report a pre-existing condition or gain information of potential doctors and services for your destination. This will not have any effect on your status on the program, but in fact will help assure that you are properly taken care of the entire time you are abroad. If you have any questions about this, then please speak with your study abroad advisor immediately. 4. You will have just about complete coverage while abroad without the requirement of a copay. Need to go to the doctor because you have the stomach flu? It's covered. Break your ankle and need to go to the emergency room? Covered. Given a prescription and need to get it from the pharmacy? That's covered as well. Some instances you may need to pay for something up front, but then you will be able to work with your study abroad advisor and CISI to obtain a refund. But most of the time, CISI will do all they can to ensure you aren't paying out of pocket for healthcare while abroad.
Medical release. You may have noticed in your application portal that you're prompted to complete a medical questionnaire. Please note that this is not a required document. However, it is a highly recommended document. This is in place for students to notify their study abroad advisor of any and all medical related information that may be important to know in order to keep students safe and healthy while abroad. Please think carefully about whether or not you would like to complete this document. However, if you do complete it, make sure that you're 100% honest the entire way through. Medications and vaccines. If you are currently taking any medications or plan to continue taking any medications while abroad, it is absolutely vital that you have a discussion with your medical professional about it. Questions should entail making sure you have the correct amount for the entirety of your time abroad, making sure whether or not any changes should or shouldn't be made prior to departure, double checking if your medication is available in your destination or if there's a comparable alternative. Should they provide copies of your prescription to aid you in flying with them? What is the proper way to store your medications while traveling, especially if you have a medication that needs to be refrigerated? We cannot stress enough the importance of these conversations. We also cannot stress the importance of not taking it upon yourself to make decisions regarding changes in medication directly before departing for your study abroad. No matter how healthy you may perceive yourself, travel can be difficult, both emotionally and physically, and making a drastic change prior to travel can have adverse effects. Legality. If you need any assistance in researching whether or not your medication is legal in your destination, then please refer to the link in your Important Links page in your application portal. You may also check TSA guidelines online for more information. Vaccinations. All students should refer to the CDC and or their doctor when making decisions regarding vaccinations. CGE and UNG faculty cannot provide medical recommendations to you. The CDC clearly describes which vaccines are required or recommended by destination.
Sexual health. As we mentioned earlier, your study abroad experience is an extension of your education, and just like you are here at UNG or at your own college campus, dating may be a part of your experience. So, during your time abroad, you are likely to meet people that you find interesting and attractive, and the possibilities for romantic or sexual relationship may arise. Maybe here at school you are a user of dating apps. You like to meet new people, you chat a while, maybe you meet up with them, maybe it goes someplace, maybe you don't. But before you continue that use of dating apps while abroad, you should sit and think about all of the possibilities of what could happen and whether or not they will be good outcomes or bad outcomes. Let's talk about this a little more and break it down into a scenario. Sadie goes abroad and stays in London for the entire summer. While in London, she's a frequent user of Tinder and Bumble or other dating apps. But when she's at home and she meets people on these dating apps, she normally has a friend in common with them or someone she knows the people that she's talking to. When you're abroad, the chances of that are a lot less likely. You more than likely have no one in common and no one can vouch for that person at all. When Sadie uses her dating apps at home and meets someone and the conversation's going really well and they decide it's time to meet in person, they typically can agree on a location that they've both been to, are both comfortable with, and have probably been to before. Here in Delanger, for example, there are several establishments that students frequent often and are great ideas for meeting up. But in London, Sadie isn't that familiar with the several different types of establishments all over the very large city. And so if the other individual makes a recommendation for a pub, Sadie more than likely hasn't heard of that pub before and has to Google it. This is leaving Sadie at a severe chance for risk. She's going to a new location to meet a new person, and she has never been there before. She's never met this individual before, and there's a lot that can go wrong here. So, if you think about it and decide that you want to use dating apps while you're abroad, make sure you think about all the potential scenarios and situations. Make sure that you know that you are comfortable and confident enough with an individual before you meet in person and where you meet them in person. You also should probably think about who maybe can go with you to make sure that you're safe or that you can contact quickly and easily to come help you get out of a situation that you don't want to be in. Another important aspect to think about when dating abroad is expectations of public and private behavior. Expectations might be very different in your host country than what you're used to here in the United States. You should first understand the culture you're in before engaging in any intimate relationships so as to avoid any misunderstandings or offense between you and an intimate partner. As you would in the United States, communicate clearly about what your expectations are. Be absolutely certain that you have consent to engage in any sexual activity, and take precautions to ensure the health of both you and your partner. If you think you might be sexually active while abroad, you should think about taking a supply of condoms with you, since the conditions of availability and purchase may be limited in your host country, as well as the conditions of manufacture and storage might be questionable. You should also think about the possibility of needing an emergency contraceptive. Emergency contraceptive is a birth control that prevents pregnancy after sex, which may or may not be available in your host country. If you think that you might be sexually active while abroad, think before you leave if you wish, to buy a contraceptive option prior to departure. Feminine hygiene. A lot of females have different preferences about their feminine hygiene product uses. Some women are fully tampon users and some prefer pad. But those two different products have also lots of variability in size and style. For example, lots of companies that make tampons make them with or without applicators. And those different types may or may not be available in your host country. So, females, before you go abroad, make sure you think about whether or not you need to bring any feminine hygiene products with you, or do your research about what types of feminine hygiene products will be available in your host country. If you have very strong preferences for the types of feminine hygiene products that you use, it is our recommendation that you bring your preferred type with you rather than depending on finding it in your host country. Lastly, think about setting expectations for your relationships while you're abroad. On the opposite end of dating while you're abroad, if you are already in a romantic relationship with someone prior to departure, you should sit down and talk to them about what your communication expectations and relationship expectations are prior to departure. Maybe you should set established times to communicate or set established ways to communicate. Or maybe you want to set guidelines on what's allowed in your relationship or not allowed in your relationship. I'll give you an example. If Johnny is in a relationship prior going abroad and that relationship is a little rocky and very distracting, the entire time Johnny's abroad, the individual constantly texts, constantly calls, constantly FaceTimes, and it distracts Johnny from his classes and his expectations for the program. It's a constant problem that Johnny is missing out on program-related activities or not engaging with other program participants because Johnny is always on his phone dealing with his relationship. This is not an ideal situation for Johnny. Johnny is missing out on program activities, is distracted from class, and all of this is affecting his grades. This is very clearly a worst case scenario, but something that you should consider, because what's happening at home should stay at home and what's happening abroad should be your priority and where your concentration is. So have conversations with your friends and loved ones about what your communication expectations will be for while you're abroad.
Mental health. We've mentioned before that travel can have an effect on your health. It can be challenging and exhausting, and sometimes you feel it a bit more mentally than you do physically. Maintaining your mental health is absolutely crucial, so it's important that you pay attention to signs and listen to yourself if you start to notice that perhaps you aren't as mentally healthy as you should be. Don't be afraid to talk to someone. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, and don't be afraid to take time out if you need it. Because the more you ignore the signs and the more that your mental health deteriorates, the worse the side effects may be. It's always better to take an evening off to participate in some self-care than it is to miss an entire week of your time abroad due to poor mental health. Your study abroad experience is short, and we're here to make sure that you get the most out of your experience and are as healthy as possible for it. CGE has prepared a list of resources in your application portal in case you find yourself needing them either while abroad or while preparing to go abroad. We've also included a worksheet for you to pre-plan some self-care steps. Please take a couple of minutes to think through what you need in regards to self-care and write those down. Please also be aware that CISI Insurance has the ability to arrange counseling sessions for students while they're abroad. So, if you find yourself really needing to speak to a professional rather than just your program director, friends, family, etc., please request a service via CISI email. For further resources concerning mental health, please reach out to Dr. Simon Cordery at Counseling Services.
Tips for staying healthy. Water. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is to stay hydrated during your time abroad. Staying hydrated will promote all-around healthiness both mentally and physically. Please also keep in mind that it may be best to drink bottled water in certain locations. In such locations, please also stay away from fruit which you cannot peel or cut, pre-cut fruit, leafy greens, and ice. Healthy diet. It is very important to stay mindful of your diet while abroad. Although you might think that living off fast food is what is best for your budget, it won't be what is best for you in the long run. A diet with a variety will help boost your immune system, which will help ward off unfamiliar germs. For students who will live in accommodations that do not include meal plans, think ahead about ideas for how you will cook and eat cheaply but healthily while abroad. Exercise. If you're used to exercise, keep it up. A drastic change in your day-to-day routine may have adverse effects on your health. However, please be aware that gyms may not be available in all program locations, and activities such as running may be viewed as inappropriate in your host culture. If you exercise regularly at home, your routine may need some adjustment abroad. Jet lag. You don't have time to let it beat you. And, despite what you may think, coffee is not the best answer. Push yourself to adjust to the new time zone as quickly as possible so that you can successfully participate in all program activities as soon as possible. Avoid napping in your first few days and go to bed at a normal bedtime hour in your host country to avoid prolonged effects of jet lag.
Risk management. The Student Code of Conduct. Please remember that during your program, you are a UNG student first and foremost. You're a representation of the university while abroad. That means that you and your actions not only reflect on yourself and the group, but the university as a whole. Think carefully of what that means and how you should act as such. The Student Code of Conduct. Please take some time to refer back to your student handbook. Those policies still apply to your time abroad, and you'll be held accountable to that. Many people around the world say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what happens on study abroad does not stay on study abroad. Act accordingly. Monitor your email. Although you may not be at UNG, the rest of the university is still operating per normal. It is the expectation of all university entities that all students will monitor their UNG emails while they're abroad. Any official university-related correspondence will come to your UNG email and should be responded to in a timely manner. Mandatory reporting. All UNG faculty and staff must report incidents that could constitute any one of the 15 different crime categories required by the Clery Act to the university's Department of Public Safety. The crime categories include murder and non-negligent manslaughter, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, vehicle theft, arson, arsons for weapons violations, arrest for drug abuse, arrest for liquor law violations, hate crimes, and sexual offenses.
Alcohol. When visiting a new location or country, there are always so many new things to see and experience. Food, drinks, art, dance, and architecture. And the local drinking culture is a part of this. While you are abroad, you may be interested or tempted to try the local alcohol, visit the pub scene, or even go dancing at a popular club. And these are all part of the cultural experience. However, when dabbling with alcohol, there are many risks that you expose yourself to that you must keep in mind. And you must remember that you are still a UNG student and perhaps even on a UNG program, so UNG rules still apply. Please refer to your student handbook for any questions regarding alcohol policy for UNG students on UNG programs. And if you are a cadet, then you are not allowed to drink alcohol at all while on study abroad. For those of you who are of age and do want to explore drinking abroad, then it is absolutely crucial that you do so carefully and thoughtfully. Keep in mind that the types of alcohol that are available may be wildly different than what you are used to, or the amounts and sizes that they come in may be different than what you are used to. Delve in slowly so you can safely explore this rather than going hard and trying everything all at once. Additionally, all the rules that you've heard regarding drinking still ring true. Don't accept drinks from strangers. Don't drink from anything that you didn't see poured yourself or by the bartender, or that wasn't given to you directly from the bartender. If you set your drink down and it leaves your eyesight even for a second, you probably should not pick it back up and continue to drink from it. Use your common sense and listen to your gut. Don't expose yourself to more risk than necessary.
Safety procedures. Situational awareness. You must have this while you're abroad. Typically, students are used to the comfort and familiarity of being here on campus in Dahlonega or Gainesville or Cumming or Oconee. And when one is comfortable in their environment, they are a little bit lax with their personal items and become less diligent about their surroundings. We often see students just leave their stuff laying on a table while they're off getting something or talking to people. But you can't do that while you're abroad. You need to be hyper aware of where your personal items are, where you are, who's around you, or what other people are doing around you. Pickpocketing and theft. These are common occurrences and are major issues in major cities. Always stay vigilant when it comes to your personal property while traveling so that you don't fall victim to pickpocketers. Something that you should be mindful of is that there are very few places and environments that are as safe as this campus. Habits that you're used to should be amended. Leaving your backpack lying around, keeping your door unlocked, your phone in your back pocket, etc. Question: where do you think the most at-risk areas on your body to theft are? Perhaps your back pocket, a handbag, maybe even a backpack, larger loose pockets, like on hoodies or large coats. Try to keep wallets and phones in front of your body or tucked away inside a bag that you have full control of. Cross-body bags are easier to secure than shoulder bags or backpacks. Be mindful of whether or not your personal items are exposed. It's easy to knock a phone out of someone's hand or steal a shoulder bag from a passerby. Political unrest and demonstrations. It is important for students to keep up to date with current events in their host country. If political unrest or demonstrations occur, do your best to steer clear of these areas and events as things can quickly get out of hand. Don't let your curiosity draw you into a bad situation. Emergency response plans. All UNG faculty-led program directors have created a set emergency response plan for their particular program. The program director will share this program-specific emergency response plan with the students on site upon arrival. Students attending third-party, exchange, or direct programs should inquire with their on-site coordinator concerning emergency preparedness.
What to do in an emergency. Call UNG Public Safety at the number listed here. Write this number down. Save it in your phone, or save it someplace that you can remember. If you ever find yourself in an emergency and can't get a hold of your local coordinator, or maybe just don't know who to call this number. And yes, we know, this is a little bit wild. Why would you call UNG Public Safety if you aren't even in the US? But if you think it through, these are people who are trained to handle emergencies and to talk people through a crisis. UNG Campus Police will always answer the phone, no matter what time or day it is, and they will always communicate with our office immediately when a study abroad student is involved. So if you need them, call them.
Emergency contacts. We've included resources in your application portal that include several ways of saying help in different languages and several different 911 equivalents. Please make sure that you memorize those that apply to your destination. Utilizing your notes feature. We also recommend creating a note in your phone that you can save all your important contact information. That way, if you get lost, something happens, or you need to call your host coordinator, then you have all the information you need. Let's be honest, we don't go anywhere without our phones. But if you do go without your phone or lose your phone, you should have a contingency plan in place. Memorize your address or your coordinator's number, or keep a written copy in your wallet. Whatever you have to do to make sure that you're safe or that you can get a hold of whomever you need to in an emergency. Communicating with home. Most importantly, be mindful in thinking about who is the most important person to call first in an emergency. And we can assure you that home or your parents or guardian are the very last on the list. It is our recommendation that before you go, you have a conversation with your emergency contact or home about communication expectations in case of an emergency. For example, how often do you expect to communicate with your loved one at home? Perhaps once a week or bi-weekly is a sensible amount. Or take another example. If a parent receives some sort of threat related to you while you're abroad, they should immediately contact the university. They should not participate in negotiations with anyone or pay any ransoms until they confirm with a university official and let the university handle it. What's an emergency? When using the word emergency, think critically about how you're using that word and in what terms. Because if you send us an email and the subject line is emergency, when you really just have a question regarding grades, that's not an appropriate usage of the word. We take the word emergency very seriously in this position, so please don't take advantage of that.
The LiveSafe app. The free LiveSafe app provides students, faculty, and staff with a direct connection to campus police so that everyone can easily communicate all of their safety needs. It's an easy-to-use feature, help you stay safe every day, and enable us to provide better protection for you. You can also notify your program directors with the LiveSafe app. See something? Send a photo. Witness something shady? With LiveSafe, you can send a picture, video, and text info to campus police. The tips you send can even be anonymous. Urgent information at your fingertips. Receive safety notifications right on your phone for your location. Stay safe always. Call or chat secretly with officers when you need help. The Safe Walk button allows friends, family, or program directors to walk you home or be alerted if you don't make it home.
Independent travel. If you're going to travel outside of the metro area of your study abroad program for any given length of time without your program, then it is crucial that you, quote unquote, register your travel with us. This is not because we want to stalk you or keep tabs on you. It's simply because we need to be able to find you in case of an emergency. Please keep in mind that you can register your travel in the Teradata portal.
STEP enrollment. The CGE has enrolled all students into the State Department program STEP for the duration of their program. This is an extra safety net for you. STEP will email you if there is something happening in your location that you need to know about. In addition, if necessary, they will help to get you out and home if warranted. However, we definitely recommend that you download their app and use their features while abroad because you can never be too safe. If you are arriving early, staying late, or traveling independently, then it is your responsibility to register yourself in STEP, as you are the only one that has that travel information.
Identity abroad. All over the world, there are varying ideologies when it comes to the various aspects of an individual's identity, including, but not limited to, gender, sexual orientation, faith, race, and ethnicity. It is very important that you do your research in the pre-planning phase of your study abroad to know whether or not you will face challenges when it comes to your identity abroad. For LGBTQ+ students, please note that all of our study abroad advisors are ally trained and are here to assist you if you feel comfortable in communicating with us about how your study abroad destination may have an effect on how you express your identity while abroad. There are resources concerning identity located on the Teradata homepage under Prior to Departure and Life and Identity Abroad.
Culture.
What is culture? One of the first things you will encounter when you go abroad is something you can't really see, but which, if you don't understand what it is and how it works, can seriously affect how you adjust. Culture is a neutral term, neither good or bad, and refers to the broadest conception about the learned knowledge that humans use to fulfill their needs and wants. It refers to the collective, the parts of living that people have used, are, or live in their society. It is comprised of those things we learn as part of growing up, including language, religion, beliefs, and social interaction and relationships. It is the do's and don'ts that society deems important to be a functioning member of society. When you go abroad, you immediately meet individuals and enter another culture that is different from your own. The behaviors and attitudes that you observe may or may not be different than your own. They probably are. However, you can't always see all the parts to a person's culture because feelings, judgments, and mental constructs are not always on display. Which brings us to the iceberg. Culture is like an iceberg. The things you can see, like food, fashion, holidays, literature, language, etc., are only the tip of the iceberg. But there is so much more deep culture underneath the tip of the iceberg. Deep culture includes things like attitudes, norms, underlying communications, concepts, and other deep aspects of culture which contribute to surface culture. Culture has been defined in literally hundreds of ways for different reasons. For our purposes, culture can be broadly defined as the shared sets of values, attitudes, and beliefs, all of which you as a traveler will not only need to be aware of, but will have to respond to and respect appropriately.
Culture shock. Culture shock is something nearly everyone will experience while abroad. However, culture shock is an individual experience based upon one's personality, past experiences, host culture, and a variety of other factors. Culture shock is often experienced much like a roller coaster, and it's not the same experience every time. Please take a look at what's on your screen, this visualization of a roller coaster. And just like a roller coaster, in the beginning, culture shock can make you a little nervous, gives you the butterflies, just like when you're slowly creeping up to that first drop. You have all these feelings. You're excited, you're scared, you're nervous. You might be wondering, what did I do? Why am I here? That's going to be how the beginning of your study abroad experience will probably start. And just like with a roller coaster, there's always a drop. And with study abroad and culture shock, there's going to be a drop. And it might be something small that sets you on that downward spiral, or it might be big. And what sets you off could be totally different from what sets off your friends. And that's okay, and that's normal, because again, this is a very individualized experience. But no matter what it is that sets it off, you will drop to the bottom. The bottom is what I like to call the I miss Chick-fil-A phase, because the bottom is where you miss everything about home and what makes you comfortable and what you're used to, like food, friends, language. But you also start to reject everything about your new host culture, the language, the food, the people, the everything. And this is a place that you don't want to stay, because you're here, when you're on study abroad, you are here to learn and to grow. And you can't learn and grow if you're too busy missing everything about home and hating everything about where you are. So this is going to be where your self-care tips really come in handy, because you're going to need all that self-care to get you out of the bottom into the I can do this phase, this isn't so bad phase, the things are looking up phase. And this phase can be really long, really short, and you might even drop back down to the bottom for a little bit. But hopefully, at least my hope for you, is that you end up in the I could live here forever phase, because this is probably the best phase in my opinion. This is when you've taken on all those drops and all those loop-de-loops and all those tight turns, and you've rocked it, and you're learning and you're living and you're loving everything about this experience. But if you never make it to the I can live here forever phase, then that's okay, because not everyone does. Not everyone hits that highest point. You might be staying steady in the I can handle this phase, and that's perfectly okay. But if you do find yourself constantly getting back to the bottom or stuck in the bottom for a really long time, then you definitely should reach out to someone to help get you out of that. Whether that be your program director, your study abroad advisor, or a coordinator on site. Because we really don't want you to miss all there is to experience on your study abroad because you're stuck in the bottom. Now, what surprises a lot of students is there always is one more big drop before you go home. And that's the I don't want to go, I don't want this to end phase. And I understand personally more than anyone how horrible that phase is, because you've grown and you've learned all these new things. But when you get back home, you're going to be on top of the world. You're going to have your Chick-fil-A back, or whatever it is that makes you happy. You're going to have your dog, your friends, your loved ones, and it's going to be so exciting. But again, there's one more drop. That's the adjustment phase. That is the I miss everything about my study abroad phase. And that takes us to re-entry.
Reverse culture shock. Reverse culture shock is often something that students don't really expect. Many students struggle harder with reverse culture shock than with culture shock in their host country. The reason for this is that study abroad changes you, and sometimes it's more difficult to accept this change than it is to accept the challenges that study abroad made you face on the ground. This is especially the case when no one at home changed with you. Oftentimes, those at home had a very linear experience, while you experienced very big changes abroad. If you're struggling with re-entry, reach out to CGE for help if needed. We've all been through culture shock before. In addition, counseling services are available to all students who may feel that they're just not adjusting well to life back home.
Re-entry continued. So what's next when you return home? CGE has several resources to help you stay involved and more globally aware. We always need students to work our study abroad fair in the fall. Students love to hear other students' experiences. It's the best recruitment tool. So if you want to come talk to other students about how amazing your program was, or what you learned, or why other students should go on this program, we definitely recommend you volunteer for our study abroad fair. Maybe one event isn't enough to let everyone know how amazing your time was. We also invite students to come table around campus and really recruit for programs. Program directors love this the most. We're also really hoping to start a peer advisor program here on the Dahlonega and Gainesville campuses. If this is something that interests you, please reach out to your study abroad advisor. And lastly, have you thought about what's after college? I know it's kind of scary, but you don't want to make sure that you leave anything out when transferring to the adult world, and you want to really explain everything that you learned while in college, and that includes study abroad. So you want to put it on your resume. You want to talk about it in job interviews. You want to tell everyone how study abroad made you the person you are. So if you wanted to learn how to do that, you can also reach out to the CG office for resources pertaining to resume and cover letter writing in terms of study abroad. There's always going to be resources coming, so if you ever have any questions, reach out to your study abroad advisor.
Technology and social media. Tech savvy. There are so many apps out there to assist in your experience abroad. There are currency conversion apps, local transportation apps, document storage apps, and others which may be very helpful to you. Don't be afraid to use student blogs or even Pinterest for ideas for appropriate apps for your host country. Keep this in mind. As great and fun as it is to share your experience with the world via social media, it is important that you do so thoughtfully and safely. Take some time to think about who is watching your content and how much information you're sharing with the world. Take geotagging, for example. If you take a photo of yourself at the Trevi Fountain, post it while you're still there, and tag your location in it, then you've literally just given the world your exact location. Do you really want to do that? Or do you even want to post that you're abroad at all while you're gone? Maybe you live alone and people know that. Then you start posting all over social media that you're out of the country. That might interest the wrong kind of person to know that your apartment is left potentially unprotected. Especially cadets and those in military service should keep this in mind. In addition, reconsider using free Wi-Fi in random locations. Many cafes and restaurants provide free Wi-Fi, which is amazing. However, they are also probably unsecure networks. If you're using unsecure Wi-Fi, you want to think carefully about what sorts of things you're logging into and whether or not you want to expose certain private information to unsecure internet access. Using your phone abroad. For Apple users, you can keep your phone on airplane mode and use your iMessaging, FaceTime, and FaceTime audio while on Wi-Fi. For Android users, there are many Wi-Fi enabled messaging apps that are free of charge, like WhatsApp and GroupMe. But make sure you do your research to ensure that the platform will be available in your destination. It is unnecessary in most cases to pay for a very expensive international phone plan. But do your research with your provider and talk with whomever pays your phone bill, if you don't, about what's best for you. Keep in mind that cheap track phones or pay-as-you-go phones are always an option, which can be acquired in any country.
Outlets, converters, and adapters, oh my. It is important to know that electrical systems vary from country to country. You'll need to do some research ahead of time in order to prepare appropriately. Think about what you will bring. Will you bring your phone, a camera, your laptop, or perhaps a hairdryer? You'll need to read the electrical input information on your device to determine whether you need an adapter, a converter, or if you need to bring that appliance with you at all. Remember that you can purchase some necessary items in your host country upon arrival, like a hairdryer. Often, it is best to leave high-powered appliances like the hairdryer at home. You can see an example of the electrical input for an appliance circled in yellow on this slide. If your item is compatible, you will only need an adapter, which simply adapts the plug of your device to the outlet in your host country. If your item is not compatible, you'll need a converter to convert the electricity of your appliance to be compatible with the system of your host country. Social media. Follow us, tag us, share your content with us. We're always looking for student photos, and we love to show you off and all the amazing things you're doing abroad. If you add us at UNG Global, either via Instagram or Twitter, or hashtag UNG Global in any and all platforms, we'll be able to have access to your content and share it. We're also looking for students to do takeovers and spotlights. Spotlights are just when we reshare a photo, but a takeover is when you actually get full access to our Instagram account for a few days to really show everyone what you're doing and about your experience. If you're interested in either of these, please contact your study abroad advisor. The admissions office is also doing a collaboration effort with us in the summer. We've partnered with the admissions office on their summer campaign highlighting our students abroad. If you're potentially interested in being a highlighted student, please reach out to your study abroad advisor. Thank you for listening to the Study Abroad Pre-Departure Orientation session. A reminder, you are responsible for completing your orientation review quiz on your application portal. Please do so now. If you have any questions regarding any of this information, or maybe we forgot something, please let your study abroad advisor know. Have a great day.